I said, you know what? This time around, nobody is going to know that I'm having a C-section. And that's where the problem started. First real issue was the fight I had with my mother-in-law, my husband's family, because there was an argument about where I should have my baby. How that should concern any third party, one would wonder, but your family now and your business is their business. Later I would find that it's all out of love. It's coming from a good place. So the first argument was about where to have the baby. They were of the opinion I should have my baby at the general hospital, and I was not going to have any of that because I'd had a certain really bad experience with general hospitals. So this was the first skirmish that I had to go through leading up until the birth of my first baby. He was overdue, so I was 2 weeks past my EDD, expected delivery date. And then I started to get anxious about when the baby was going to come, how much weight I had added, was it the weight that was slowing it down and all of that. I started to take regular walks, which is really good. So on this particular day, I think I walked for about an hour and then I started to feel cramps. And we went to the hospital. This was a Tuesday night, precisely. And then we went to the hospital, but I was not progressing as fast. At some point, at about a woman is supposed to dilate up to 10 centimeters, but I stopped at 4 centimeters for several hours. After about what seemed like 10 years of being in labor, it was actually 2 days. My doctor eventually said she was going to have to do a section. God forbid. It's a lie, not my portion. You know, we had prayed and prayed about, read all the spiritual books, I'd gone through. I remember very vividly, at a point I think I had died. The pain was unbelievable. It was, you can't describe it in words. I don't think there are any words that can describe that level of pain. So, and she kept on encouraging me because it's supposed to be a last resort, yeah? And she did want it to be a last resort. And so it took so long until she couldn't take it and she said, no, this woman has to go into the surgery, has to go into surgery, we have to perform a surgery immediately, otherwise we're going to lose the baby, we're going to lose the mom. The baby's heart rate was already slowing down. So we went into the theater. An emergency team was called. And when I was giving the anesthesia, I remember bursting into tears because it was like all the pain evaporated. It just went away. It was like shifting from it. Everything just went away. And then I burst out crying. I'm like, if this solution was there, why didn't you help me? I mean, you could have done this many hours ago. Why did it have to be after many hours of suffering? You know, it was a painful thing to realize that. I could have been out of that unbearable pain much earlier. The baby was born, my husband was with me. Everything was supposed to be fine. Or rather, I thought everything was fine in the beginning. So after the birth, my, again, family, sister-in-laws, sisters-in-law and mom-in-law came over, and I remember one of the first questions I had to answer was, oh, how did you have the baby? Was it a natural birth or is it a C-section? I think it's the dumbest question you could ever ask any new mom. Women, fear God. Please, stop asking that question. Anyway, and it put me on the edge, like, well, it was a C-section and all of that. And I thought, you know, you see sometimes what it is that you want to see. I thought I saw and sensed a feeling of disappointment coming from certain quarters. You know, like, wow, which one is this one now? Why is your mates that are doing it and me, say I did it normal, so why is your own like this kind of thing? So it made me very defensive. For the few weeks that I had the privilege of having my mom-in-law and mom actually stay with me, um, instead of enjoying the fact that I had help and people around me, I was busy throwing a pity party, um, and I didn't realize I was depressed until much later. Okay, so this brings me to my next point. Postpartum depression is real. It's as real as air. It's real. I didn't know that I was going through that phase until much later when the cloud lifted, and I knew no, I wasn't normal. It was almost like I was just seeing my child for the first time. I think this was after about 5 months. It was in the fourth month going to the fifth month, and I was staring at my baby, and it almost like I just came to myself, like, kind of feeling like I was seeing him for the first time. And I looked around me, what's going on? It was almost like I was just realizing everything for the first time. It was a big hit. I was depressed for a long time, and the signs to watch out for if you have any new mom around you, which is what I look out for now, is and how to identify postpartum depression, is any sort of clinginess. So I realized I was really clingy. I was holding the baby for far much longer than I ought to have. I wanted to do everything on my own. I was very defensive, especially because I thought someone was thinking I had failed. And of course, I was also blaming my body for failing me, for not doing the right thing. So I wanted to do everything myself to prove a point that nobody was actually interested in me proving anyway, that I could do this. I was a woman on my own. I was going to be able to take care of my baby. I wasn't leaving the baby to be taken care of by anybody. So I was just really clingy, holding on to the baby. The baby wants to sleep, the baby wants to cry, I want to feed the baby, everything, me. But when you have people around you, you ought to release the baby, but just sleep and free the baby. What mistakes can they make? And I'm like, no, don't give the baby food like this. Don't give the baby. And my mom is so notorious. She does not, she has this really funny habit of not measuring doses of medication before giving it to anybody, even herself, And because she can do that because she has some sort of experience. But it was my first baby. I don't understand how you take a dropper and just put it in the bottle and just press it. You are not even looking at the measurement. You just put it in baby's mouth. So I'm going all crazy, and I'm like, oh, you didn't look at what you are even measuring. I don't put it in baby. How do you know if the baby is going to choke and stuff like that? I was just really fussy about everything. And I think I had a few crying. I'm not a crybaby, but you'd burst into tears at odd times. Everything gets to you. You feel things too strongly. Someone says something, you misinterpret it, and you go into a pity party. Those were all of the things that I went through at the time. So that phase went. Close chapter on first baby. Then second baby. Yes, of course, realizing that I was pregnant, it was 2 years after, so it was enough time, but of course that came with, okay, I'm going to go through this again. I had that baby in March, and because of the first experience, because of the having to deal with that disappointment, having to deal with what I thought was disappointment on my mom-in-law's face, and then from my mom coming from certain quarters, I said, you know what? This time around, nobody is going to know that I'm having a C-section. I knew I was going to have a surgery anyway because I'd had the first one, but I was determined to hide the fact that I was going to have a C-section. So this is me confessing before the whole world that I had a C-section for my second baby. Nobody knows. Going into that, yes, was also a mental struggle because I was preparing myself to hide the fact that I was going to do something I knew I was going to do. I wasn't concentrating on things I ought to be concentrating, like just preparing for the birth and preparing to raise this baby properly and be fine by myself. So I had a C-section. I had the baby about 12 midnight, and I'd mentioned to my doctor not to, and myself and my husband had mentioned not to inform my family until much later at night, when it would be impossible for them to come visit the hospital, so that I could have a few hours to heal and be able to walk around, having had a C-section. And then they will only be able to come the next day. So it wasn't like we were telling a lie about when we had the baby. We had the baby on Wednesday. It's just that it was midnight, 1 a.m. on Wednesday. But you heard at midnight when you couldn't do anything about it on Wednesday, and then you came on Thursday, so I had a whole like 24 hours to be able to get myself and stuff like that. So when they came to the hospital, first question, how did you have the baby? I say me, I had the baby naturally now. Should know. Yes, and that's where the problem started. It's almost impossible for anyone that's had a C-section. It's almost impossible to hide, but I did it because I was so determined that I wasn't going to have that look ever again. I actually allowed myself to be given a cyst bath. Cyst, I think that's the word, right? In the morning, take off the plaster that was supposed to cover my wound before I went into the bathroom where my mom-in-law would, do the hot water press and all of that. So there was nothing amiss. I was walking, I was eating, even though the things I wasn't supposed to be eating, when she wasn't looking, I would just, throw it away. I would throw it somewhere. So she wasn't seeing that I wasn't actually, but to her, I was actually eating and everything was normal, But that was taking its toll because I wasn't supposed to be doing something. I was exposing myself to infection. I was exposing myself to a lot more pain. I was using my analgesics and I was using it even more regularly than I was because I was in a lot of pain, having to go through all of that press and sit. And because if you are hiding the fact that you had a C-section, there are so many things you're going to be bending down. Come and say, no, mommy, don't sweep. Oh, I will sweep myself. I was doing some stupid things. Oh God, that was so stupid. And because I knew I'd gone through postpartum depression before, I thought I was prepared not to go through it again. But I was actually setting myself up with all of those things I was doing again this second time around. So while it didn't hit as hard as the first time, I actually did go through some sort of depression, because then I started to blame myself. Why do I even, if not that my body is not cooperating, why do I even have to go through all of this drama? I would have just had a natural birth anyway, and then this whole story will be true. Being pregnant, as far as I'm concerned, is easy peasy because I never throw up, I never spit for one day, I don't have any allergies, nothing. It's very, very easy. Of course, coming to delivery, that's where the whole drama begins, but the toughest part for me is breastfeeding. So my body or my mind is saying, I have done this child, I've done the best I can do for you. What else do you want? I carried you for 9 months. One of you I carried for almost 10 months. I gave birth to you through all the pain, went to see my father in heaven, came back, I still met you there. And now you want to share my body. You want to be sucking my blood. What? So it's that sharing was really difficult for me. I mean, but for platforms like this, you rarely share these stories with one another. So I'm not sure I've had this conversation with anyone, to be honest. Probably my sisters just mention here and there, but we hardly sit down and exchange notes and help other people who are just coming into motherhood. Everyone seems so happy breastfeeding. You look like the old one, and how is your own? This is supposed to be a joyful thing, but it was so difficult. It was really difficult, having to wake up at really odd hours, being the only one to be able to fend for this baby for so long, because there's nothing you can do now. You can't cut a part of your body and give to someone, please help me feed this baby. Expressing was so difficult. I couldn't get a hang of it the first pregnancy. I couldn't get a hang of it the second time around. So it was me constantly having to do this by myself. With my second baby, I was running a master's program at the Lagos Business School. If I did not resume 2 weeks after, I was going to have to forfeit that semester and start all over again, which I wasn't prepared to do because of the financial implications, and it was just going to set me off track by another year. So I prepared myself mentally, and then I resumed 2 weeks after. I was living on the mainland. School was on the island, so I was traveling with a newborn at 2 weeks every day. It was a full-time program, so I could finish my program. This in itself was really tough because physically been having to do that, and this time nobody was around because they believe you had your first baby, we did this for you. It's your second time around, you should be able to do this by yourself. So I had no mom, I had no mom-in-law with me, no sister, no one was with me at this. It was just myself and my husband and this newborn, and then the toddler. He was just 2. My firstborn was 2 years at the time. So we'd go to school, pick him up, had to go from school to the crèche severally to feed and all of that. Close chapter on second birthing experience. And then there's the third. So with the third, I was looking review. You review, and this was 6 years after my second. I'd had time to grow, I'd had time to mature. I wasn't going to hide anything from anybody. This is an elective C-section for that matter. I'm going into it with full knowledge. So anybody that's not happy with it, let them go and hug a transformer. This third one, I've always been a full-time working mom. I've always worked. So throughout this pregnancy, I was working. I was traveling out of town to run projects and all of that. And because I was determined that nobody will see me bending down, spitting, doing all of those things that I say like lies, not me. I was working more than the people that were not even pregnant to prove a point. Oh, Jesus. I don't know what point I always think I have to prove, or what point we as pregnant women feel we have to prove, but I thought I was supposed to be proving a point, especially to my female boss, that don't underestimate me, don't look down on me. So from the 4th month of this pregnancy, I was having threatened miscarriages. So I started to have contractions. My doctor kept warning me to take a bed rest, that she was going to write to my employer to cut me off work so that I could, otherwise I was at risk of losing the baby, and I said, leave all that one, don't worry, it's not me. So I would go out of town without telling my doctor. I was doing all sorts of crazy things. The contractions continued up until the end of that pregnancy. I didn't carry to full term because, naturally, I was putting a lot of strain on my body that I wasn't supposed to. And then the baby came just a little earlier than she was supposed to. It was a girl. So this one, Shady had been warning me that I should calm down, slow down, calm down, slow down. I didn't hear. It was at night, I started to feel contractions, and it was odd because I wasn't supposed to be feeling contractions. I hadn't even had that experience besides the very first time, which was many, many years ago. I didn't even know what contractions were supposed to feel like, but real, I'm about to have a baby contractions. So it was coming and going, I'm like, it's like this thing is like this. So I was saying to my husband, this thing is coming, and it's coming closer. I'm not supposed to go into labor because I'm definitely having a C-section. So we rushed to the hospital, called the doctor, and then she was already panicking because I wasn't supposed to go into labor at all. It was going to complicate the C-section that we had planned to have, which we had set a date for, but it wasn't even close at all. Called an emergency team again. Okay, by the time an emergency team was put together, I was so far gone into labor. I think the contractions were coming 2 minutes or so apart. It was crazy. That is not funny. I was rushed into and then there was this very crucial conversation I've been having with my doctor that she had not obliged to. And while right there in labor, she was consulting the surgeon and saying, see what this couple wants to do. What was the conversation? I wanted to have my tubes tied. It's my body. I am done. I don't want again. I want to tie my tubes. This doctor refused though. She said, no. You remember the Sosoliso flights? Don't you remember what happened? I said, as it's not my portion, what do I want to do now? I said, I want to tie my tubes. I don't want to. This is my third baby. I don't want to have to constantly worry about getting pregnant. It happened before. I don't want it to happen again. I don't want to have to, I wasn't using any contraceptives. We were just going by the safe period. And so it comes with its own, constantly calculating. I'm not a very careful person like that. I hate all those kinds of things. So it was really strenuous all of those years, having to keep that calendar, make sure that your head is correct and calculating at every point in time, you know. So I was like, no, I'm not doing this. If this is my third baby, it's a girl, I have 2 boys now, what am I looking for again? And luckily for me, she consulted the surgeon as we were about to go into the theater, and she says, this couple they want to tie their tubes. I'm advising them against it. What do you think? Luckily for me, God has sent an angel. The man says, there's no big deal now. It's their choice. It's I mean, if they want to do it, they might as well. It's not a problem. Asked for my age and all. I said, she's good to go if she wants to do it. So they agreed to do that. Going into the theater, unfortunately, I think maybe because my labor was so far gone, the anesthesia wasn't kicking in. So they gave me the first shot. I was still feeling all of the touching up. I was still feeling everything quite strongly. They gave me another shot, which was already getting risky. I was still feeling everything, and they needed to cut because I was in labor and I wasn't supposed to go into labor. They needed to cut immediately. I was still feeling the pain. I was feeling the knife. I started to shout, hey, I'm feeling it, I'm feeling it. And then I heard them speaking among each other, what do we do? I mean, we're not supposed to give her another shot or something. Well, if she's feeling the pain, what do we do? And all of those arguments, I don't know, I was sure where I blacked out. So apparently they're giving me another shot, and then this was full anesthesia. Usually they just give me what to paralyze me from the waist down. I'll still be awake, but this time around I blacked out, so it just knocked me out. When I came to, I woke up screaming and shouting, where is my baby? Because I didn't know whether I died. I didn't know whether I was in heaven. I didn't know whether I had the baby or not. And then my husband was beside me, God bless him. He says, no, the baby is fine. I want to see the baby. He said, the baby is fine. I want to see the baby. That's how they used to lie. Like, the baby is okay and all that. So they brought the baby, and she was fine. Went through that. The family came around. Of course, we had declared already that we had a C-section, so there was no basis for any questions. It's really difficult having to bathe a newborn, cater to a newborn, as well as other children. What stood out for this on this third journey was, again, the breastfeeding. I had to resume 2 months after, self-inflicted again, because I wanted to run a training before I resumed work 3 months, in the third month of work. So I started a program. I started a project 2 months in. I started to drop out a crutch. And I think with all of the stress and all that I put my body under, my milk ran out. So I couldn't breastfeed after the third month. It was very unexpected. It was not what I had anticipated would happen. I hadn't had that experience before. Try as I would, nothing was working. I had to switch. I mean, and at that point, this was an infant at 3 months. I mean, what do you switch to? There were formulas she wasn't accepting. I would try this. She was reacting to most of the off-the-shelf formulas. It was really, it was something. It was something to deal with. We went through that phase. Luckily, I had to get back to work. Work itself was stressful because, again, I felt like I had to come back with a bang. Yeah, so anyway, everybody's fine now. It's been 3 years since my last baby. I'm grateful for all of the experiences. I'm grateful for the journey. I'm grateful to be able to share my experience with others. No two experiences are alike. That I know for sure, because even comparing notes with others, everyone's story is different. Everyone's story is different. So no matter how detailed I go, or anyone goes into their own experience or their journey, it never really prepares you. Yeah, but you know what the things to look out for, things that could happen. You pray, yes, but also be aware that these experiences are real. These are the kind of things that could happen, and possibly guard against it.